how do you navigate where you have a business partner and your goals for the company are different? Maybe different growth goals, different directions, different levels of contribution. Like, how do you handle that?
We've had 3 previous partnerships, even though 2 of those partnerships, we were like no hard feelings, very close. But we have a third business partnership where we weren't aligned, and that partnership.
Welcome to the Bug Bucks Podcast, a podcast designed to help you become a bug money millionaire. Today's episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. I'm your host, Eric Bassett, and of course, across the way in the Vancouver Bug Bucks Plus studio is my co-host, Jay Claus. What's up, dude?
What's up, Eric? What's up, my Bug Buckser community?
Okay, dude. Quick question for you. What is the top, just your absolute favorite Thanksgiving food?
Okay. So obviously turkey and gravy and mashed potatoes and the green bean casserole with the onions on top and, all that stuff. Okay. So that's a given, right? Okay. So there's this thing that my mom makes. Oh, don't forget the sweet potato pie. I mean, that's with the marshmallows. Yeah. Okay. So there's this thing that my mom makes. And it's called, I don't know what we call it, just pretzel jello. I don't know. It's okay. So it's like this buttery, crispy pretzel bottom, like crust on the bottom. And then, I think it's raspberry jello with real raspberries in it, or like maybe strawberry jello with strawberries in it. Uh-huh. And then, this, cream cheese / Cool Whip topping on top. Oh, yeah. And, dude, I can eat like a sheet pan of that stuff. It is so good. I've never met anybody else that makes it. I don't know where my mom got the recipe, but it's like you have this salty crunchy on the bottom and then this sweet in the middle with the raspberries and then that cream cheese, Cool Whip flavor on top. And the flavors just meld together like magic. It's so good. Yeah.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm realizing that this was a bad idea to talk about right around lunchtime because now this is making me freaking hungry. Okay, so it's hard for me to pick a favorite when it comes to Thanksgiving. Obviously, I like turkey. In fact, turkey I think is a pretty top tier meat that just doesn't get enough credit. But
wait a minute. Okay, so hold on. So let's just put in parentheses here. What's your favorite way to do a turkey? Like roaster pan, oven? I've never deep fried, but what's...
I think I would steer away from deep frying the turkey. I'm guessing it's got to be in the oven.
As a fireman, I cannot condone deep frying your turkey.
Freaking burn your house down, dude. I would say, in the oven, roasted, that would be...
Did you guys were there last year when I spatchcocked the turkey on the Traeger? Were you guys there for that?
I think so.
Jana did a turkey in the roasting pan, and then I did a spatchcock turkey on the Traeger. Yeah. So everybody that doesn't know what spatchcock is, it's like you cut the turkey you cut the bottom of the turkey, and you smash down the breastbone. Yeah. So it's like smashed down, right? So it's like a horizontal turkey. And then you just smoke it. You season it or brine it or whatever, and then you smoke it on your smoker for however long until it gets up to temp. And it cooks super evenly, so there's not really any dry spots. Yeah. Okay, so I just hijacked your
Oh no. Now I'm dreaming about freaking smoked turkey. Okay. I will say that one of the cool things that my family's done in previous years, and I don't know where we got this, is the day after Thanksgiving and for a couple of days after, you make these little Thanksgiving spring rolls.
Oh yeah.
So you take potatoes, mashed potatoes and turkey and stuffing, right? And you put it in the tortilla, right?
Yeah. Don't forget the cranberry.
Well, and then
you put cranberry sauce in there too. That's the
after you cook them, right? You fry them, and after you cook them, then you can dip them in. You can do cranberry sauce. You can do gravy, right? Oh, yeah. It's like, imagine like, you've got this like spring roll that's got the turkey, the potatoes, and the stuffing in it, and then you're dipping it in gravy and chomping on it, dude. Like, man, that's so good.
Okay. Yeah, we got to do that. When you guys are up for Thanksgiving, when the family's together, we're doing it.
We will do it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we'll have to convince Jana because you say spring roll and Jana's out, right?
Yeah, Jana's like, I'm not going to eat that. Like, I'll have some plain turkey and some pepper, please. Yeah.
Exactly. If Brinley suggests it, then we're good. So let's just coordinate.
You got it. Yeah, I'll have my wife suggest it to your wife, and then we'll be the beneficiaries of the whole situation.
Exactly. Yep.
Perfect.
I'm game.
I like this plan. Okay.
I like this plan. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, dude. Well, now that I've officially decided that I'm starving and very hungry, we're gonna switch gears here.
Well, just like a 10-minute long episode.
Yeah, dude, just about talk about food. Sorry, guys, got to go early. Got to eat some lunch. Just want to remind everybody listening, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred podcast platform like Apple, YouTube, Audible, or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. Make sure to check out our Facebook group, BugBucks Plus. That is BUGBUX Plus. We have the owners only group that has over 4,700 other pest control owners waiting for you to connect with you and share their thoughts. We also have the BugBucks Pest Pros group for non-owner team members designed to help them develop in their roles. Joining the groups is the best way to connect with us, share your feedback on our show, and have your questions highlighted and discussed here on the podcast. So make sure you find us on Facebook and join one of those groups. Alrighty, dude. This is going to be an interesting one. I don't want to call it, not really controversial, but I think that this particular topic is one that is difficult to navigate. So
it has the potential to pull back the curtain.
Yeah, it does, right? And we'll talk about, best case scenario and maybe even worst case scenarios here. But how do you navigate a scenario where you have a business partner and your goals for the company are different? Maybe different growth goals, different directions, different levels of contribution. Like, how do you handle that, right? So let's unpack this a little bit. What are your first thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts are, I think that we mentioned this at the beginning of the previous episode, but my first thoughts are, we've had 3 previous partnerships, and even though 2 of those partnerships, we were like no hard feelings, very close. It wasn't always that way, but we've reconciled. And so we have 2 partnerships where this was the case, right? And I'll try to carefully navigate those topics. But we have a third business partnership where we weren't aligned in the goals and the direction of the company, and that partnership, that relationship has not resolved. So yeah, the tricky thing is when you're getting people together, right? And I hadn't thought about this until we were in one of the previous partnerships, but a business partnership is very much like a marriage. You have 2 people or however many people, right? Well, in that instance, I guess it's not like a marriage, right? Unless you live in like South Utah / Northern Arizona, right? We've all seen those TV shows on Netflix. So you have a group coming together, right? 2 groups or whatever, 3 groups, and everybody has their own ambitions. Everybody's got their own ideological approach. Everybody's got their own like ultimate dreams, and also on top of that, everybody's got their own I don't know, how do we say this? Like the depth of their gas tank.
Oh yeah.
Or like the expansiveness of their bandwidth. So you're bringing all these elements together, and at first there's this honeymoon phase, and then after the honeymoon phase, it's like what the cuss? You squeeze the toothpaste in the middle of the tube. Like, Like, what? We're not animals. Like, roll from the bottom, or top or whatever end it is. So a business partnership really is it's like a marriage. And one of the previous business partners that I'd had said that that a business partnership is only it's only functioning until it's not fun anymore. And then once it's not fun anymore, then that's when it starts to fall apart.
We're going to take a quick moment to highlight one of the premier sponsors of the BugBucks Plus platform. Are you running a pest control business and worried about missing sales opportunities? Let's talk about Same Day AI, the game-changing virtual sales agent designed specifically for the pest control industry. This innovative tool uses advanced artificial intelligence to ensure no potential customer slips through the cracks. What's really impressive about Same Day AI is how it integrates seamlessly with field routes and other top CRMs. It doesn't just quote, it schedules new customers directly onto your routes, optimizing your workload without missing a beat. I've seen it in action, and it is truly a sight to behold. The efficiency is incredible. Bookings go up and stress goes down. For any pest control business looking to enhance their sales strategy and boost customer engagement, Same Day AI is your answer. Transform your approach and elevate your service with the efficiency that only AI can provide. Trust me, you'll see the difference. Visit GoSameDay.com to learn more and start revolutionizing your business today. 100%. And I like that you bring up just how different people are, right? Because sometimes when you bring people together, they're super similar and they have similar goals, similar aspirations. They're in similar places in their life. And
similar background.
Their background, how they were raised and just all these different things. And that's how they found each other, right? They're like, oh my gosh, dude, like we're really similar. We should get together. We should make this partnership. And then as time goes on, things just change, right? And it's not that they change for the worse. It's just that you can't expect a partnership for people to always be wanting the same things at the same times, while they have competing priorities in their lives. And, best case scenario, in your partnership, you're able to navigate those things. And we're going to talk about some of the pro tips in there, maybe. Navigate some of those things where the partnership and the relationship is still healthy. And you guys can still contribute at whatever level you want to, and everything else makes sense. Worst case scenario is that you start to resent each other a little bit, right? You feel the tension, and there's always going to be a little bit of tension there. It's a partnership. It's how it works, right? How dare you squeeze the toothpaste from the middle of the tube? But it all depends on how well that you can identify some middle ground and be creative with some of those things. Because if you just kind of close off to it and you dig your heels in, that partnership only has one direction it's going to go, right? And some partnerships end and it's okay, right? Like some partnerships end. Like and you're like, you know what, dude? I'm glad that we did what we did. It's okay that we're where we are. We're going to go our separate ways, and that's fine, right? And so I guess there's kind of this interesting grid diagram where you've got like happy, not happy, in a partnership, not in a partnership, right? And you can be happy in a partnership. Great, right? You can be unhappy in a partnership. Not so great.
Not so great.
You can be happy and you're not in the partnership anymore. That's great. And you can be unhappy, not in the partnership. So, what we want to do is kind of highlight some of the pitfalls and maybe talk about some of the tactical approaches to staying in the happy zone, whether you're in a partnership or not. So,
so as we're talking, there are three examples that come to mind, and maybe we can talk about these, or whatever, piece by piece. But I think of and these aren't from my partnerships. I'll just say this: these are business partnerships of friends that I know that are also pest control owners. So there's another friend. They're not in business anymore. They'd sold their business since. But it was two owners, and they started out kind of as acquaintances, and then they became friends, and they started a pest control company together. And after so many years of building the company, they came up with this with this mutually agreed upon way to spend the business's money, but not on business things, but on personal things that they would write off through the business. Okay. So they had this kitty or whatever you want to call it. Okay. And every month there was a certain amount of money in the kitty. And one of the partners started to abuse that. He started to abuse that kitty. And I don't think it was like, hey, we're going to equally, like if I take out $5, then you have to take $5, whatever. It was like they just trusted each other, right? Well, one of the partners started to really abuse that pool of money. And nothing destroys or harms a business partnership faster than money problems, right? So that's where their partnership started to really fall apart, was in that way. And at the same time, this business partnership, they were doing pretty well. They were a multi-million-dollar company. They were both living very comfortably. And one of the partners became comfortable. There's also the partner that was dipping too much into the kitty. One of the partners became too comfortable. He lost his sight on growing the business. And at the same time, he's plucking from the business. And so the other partner, obviously, that's going to cause some real discontent, because the guy's not pulling his weight, not sharing the vision, and he's not pilfering, because they had an agreement, but it just became very lopsided.
Yeah, well, and you highlighted that pretty easily. One of the biggest problems that people run into is financial. And it's not just, maybe one partner's that's spending more money than the other partner is, and then there's pressure there because, especially if you're equal partners, there's this idea that the business needs to benefit you guys equally. And so one partner's like, hey, dude, I want to spend X amount of dollars. And he's like, okay, not only do I not need to spend that, but like I would rather we invested that back in the business. That's the smarter thing to do. Meanwhile, the other partner's like, dude, we've worked so hard. Like we deserve this. And you see the rift, right? And then if something starts happening where they have that conversation and now there's a dishonest action from one of the partners, the rift between them just gets bigger and bigger. Yeah. And so there's this element there where, communication's huge, and it's huge in any partnership, but being able to, one, communicate openly with each other so that you understand, okay, these are my needs and I want to understand your needs, and I'm going to be okay with the fact that maybe they don't line up 100%. And if they don't, how do we figure out a solution where your needs are met for the most part and my needs are met for the most part, and each other's needs aren't stepping on each other's toes, right? And so from a financial standpoint, when it comes to investing money, you're going to run into that. I mean, if you think about it, you might have a partner who is ready to build a family, right? Or they need money, or they need to buy a house, or whatever's going on, and the other partner doesn't necessarily need to do that. And you kind of have to realize, at least I think for me and you and Jana, I've kind of figured out, like, we might find ourselves in different moments personally that totally require the business to do different things for us from a benefit standpoint. And it's not always going to line up, but I operate under the assumption that, things that might be good for me right now that aren't entirely the same benefit for you, I'm going to be able to flip that around later on, right? And we're going to be able to even things out, which is the important part. But being flexible with one another and being open to communicate about it, I think is huge, because once you stop communicating, and all bets are off.
Just like a marriage, right?
Yep.
Yeah, just like a marriage. Well, and having a mutual kitty that you dip into, that's totally different. I mean, let's just clarify. That's totally different than a tax distribution, right?
Yeah, we're talking tax laws and legalities aside out of the conversation here, because we don't need to dive into that part of the conversation. But
asterisk, right? But tax distribution. If that's how you structure it in your business, and you distribute your tax liability based on your ownership structure, then that's different, because that's according to your agreement. And also, if you have other things that are not accounted for, like for instance, you have an Amazon account that's a shared Amazon account, and it gains a percentage on the amount that you spend on the account. Anytime money is distributed, when it's distributed according to the ownership split, and you've agreed on that from the beginning, and all parties adhere strictly to that plan, then my experience in the last 11 years is that when you have the agreed upon structure and you distribute the money according to that structure, then there's peace. There's peace in the land, right? But it's as soon as that starts to get a little skewed, that's where problems arise.
Yeah. Well, and, from just a business finance standpoint, you've got, obviously, distributions are almost always in accordance with the percentage of ownership, the equity that you own, right? Almost always. Sometimes there's some agreements otherwise. And then you also have what you might just identify as like a salary, So you've got this regular compensation that the business pays. And again, we're not talking taxes here. There's a whole other side of this when it comes to how you structure your business and your taxes that we're just not going to dive into. But most of the time you've got your distributions that are equal to your equity. And then you kind of have this salary portion, right? And so you might have an equal partner where you say, hey, dude, we're both working on the business. We're both killing it. We're both doing this thing. And, we can agree that we're going to pull X amount of dollars for a salary every month individually, right? And then, at the end of the year or quarterly or however way you do it, you look at the profits of the company and you say, hey, dude, I think we should do an X number of dollar distribution, and that's going to go to me and you in accordance with our equity. Totally good way to do it, right? And I think at some point, business owners and partners find themselves in a scenario where maybe one business partner is like, hey, dude, I'm going to semi-retire. I'm going to focus on these other things. I'm going to do this other stuff, right? And the other business owner is like, well, wait a second, man. Like, I've still got gas in the tank. I want to push. I want to do X, Y, and Z.
Let's keep growing.
Yeah, I want to, and I don't mind working in the business. For me personally, this is good, right? And so now you have two different contribution levels, which is interesting because from a distribution standpoint, like if you just distribute profits, then that's going to be even, right? Or whatever in accordance with their equity. But if you're talking about that salary based on contribution level, now there's going to be a little bit of a disproportionate vibe, right? And so I've always told people, like when this question comes up, because people have asked us about this, is, the amount of money that you make should be mostly based on your contribution level. And it's not that those contributions have to be the same, or that they need to be quote unquote equal.
Well, if both you and if everybody in the partnership has the exact same skill set and they're doing the exact same thing, then that can be pretty tricky, because it's like we're both swinging a hammer, but I'm swinging my hammer a third faster than you are swinging your hammer, but we're doing the same thing, right? So that can be tricky if that's how your partnership is structured. But, in a really successful partnership, generally speaking, you're going to be having different roles and responsibilities. So that can be difficult to quantify sometimes.
Yeah, and I think most partnerships, kind of like ours, we found the little elements in our business that we all kind of naturally fit into. Right. And when needed and when necessary, we jump into other parts of the business when that's what the business needs. And, you know, most importantly, we have open conversation and communication about, you know, our contribution level and what we're comfortable with. And we're readily available for each other when we need to be, right? And, you know, not all partnerships are like that. And so I guess at some point you might have to decide, okay, you know, if this partner is going to be contributing significantly less of their time, like significantly less, and I'm going to be continuing to contribute significantly more, you know, should we talk about having a different level of salary, right? Hey, maybe the distribution level's the same because of our equity, but maybe we should switch up our salary, or maybe we should just talk about some type of change financially so that we all feel good about it, right? Because one thing, like, and we kind of go back to that other partnership with the money, right? If one partner wants to be less involved and the other partner wants to be more involved, you don't want to force that more involved partner to be less involved in the company just because the other one does, because now you've got two uninvolved partners. Yeah. And the thing that they really want is for the business to succeed, or at least keep providing for them financially. And now that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not hitting the yoke together. You know, and like what happened in our business, you know, we're all engaged, we're all involved, you know, everybody's pulling their weight. And then, you know, and then we had a tragedy happen in the family. You know, our son died. And, all of a sudden in the business, it's like some of us, I couldn't even walk into the office. You know, I think that we talked about this in episode 149, but, you know, we'd had advice from a grief therapist, and, you know, she said, oh yeah, you got to get back to your normal life as soon as possible. And so we tried that. And then like the Tuesday after the funeral's on Friday, the next Tuesday, I come into the office and like, dude, I was so sideways that, and I felt so sick, like I was reeling still. Yeah. And I was like, this, I can't be. And then that turned into this thing where it was like, I was kind of almost repulsed by the idea of coming into the office, coming to work, you know? And so, so there can be moments in your partnership where somebody, in the partnership needs to take time, and allowing that kind of flexibility in the partnership. Hey, I'll pull some slack, you know? You know, I'll cover for you while this is happening. And, you know, as you're needing time to come back, and when you're ready, then we'll do that, you know? But if there's no extemporaneous circumstance and one person just says, oh yeah, you know, I think that I want to be just less involved, and the other person's picking up slack, and it's just because the other person doesn't want to be involved, then you really run into troubles, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times most people are intuitive enough to pick up on that, you know, disbalance, right? Like the scenario where you're like, okay, I can feel this, you know, and most of the time that's kind of the beginning of the end of some partnerships. You know, it's like, dude, I call them, they're not available. I'm the one in the office. I'm the one that has to jump in the truck. They're not doing anything. And I think we talked about this in a previous episode. If you have a partnership, right? Like let's say that you've got a partnership where one guy is 100% in the operations, right? And another guy is 100% on the sales side of the company. Well, there might be a scenario where that partnership, as it evolves, unless both of them can kind of pick up other parts of the pieces that overlap a little bit, there might come a time where it's like, hey, we have managers. We don't need you in the operational side of the company anymore, right? Or, hey, we've got a whole sales team and we have someone who's leading it and you're not selling anymore. Like what's going on, right? And it kind of comes back to that other thing we noted, where it's being intentional about how you invest your time back into the company as you go through these different levels of ownership. And those things change, right? And you have to be willing to change with them, not just for the benefit of yourself and your company, but also for the benefit of your partnership. Because if your company outgrows you, and you're not contributing anymore, and your other partner is, there's that disproportionate scenario that we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, we have a friend. We have a lot of friends in the industry. So, and we hear a lot about what's going on in other people's partnerships, and so we can talk, I think, on this topic, but without obviously revealing anybody's name. But we know of another friend in the industry who has a partnership where they started out together because they were in sales together, right? And so then they're both selling door to door, and then they say, hey, let's start a pest control company. And at the beginning, they were really hitting it together, right? And then as they started to gain momentum, and like you said, they find a sales manager, right? They bring on a recruiting system, and they've got this system now that's like kind of almost managing itself. And so the one brother is still very much involved in all of the operations and like involved in the growth and the progress of the company because he's got a good background in business. And then the other partner, he's off to Turks and Caicos and, like really not like doesn't show up, doesn't contribute. And so then it's just like such a gross imbalance that you can't help but say this partnership ain't working and it's not fun for me anymore. And once it's not fun anymore, then, if you don't exit quickly, then that's where you can do real damage to a relationship.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough because, what we're not saying is that an owner who, helps build this thing from scratch, right, isn't due the benefits that the company builds, right? I mean, once you get to that point where the company is successful and it's growing on its own and it's great, you do deserve the financial benefits there, right? But you also at the same time can't ignore when you're no longer contributing in a direct way and there is a business partner who is continuing to contribute in that way, right? And it's, whether by choice or not, that's the scenario, right? Yeah. And if you have whatever it is, if you're going to do a $500,000 distribution, at the end of the year, and it's like you're 50,
that sounds great. Let's do that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let's do it. And you are 50-50 partners, right? Well, that's great. You're both going to make, $250,000 on that distribution. That's awesome. That's great money, right? But if one of the partners is working in that business, 40 hours a week, and the other partner is working on that business 10 hours a week, then the salary, quote unquote salary, right, that both business partners have are probably going to be more or should be more commensurate with the work that's being done.
Yeah. And you like trying to slice up that pie can get really tricky because then it comes down to, well, what are you doing? Well, what am I doing? And then it's like my kids arguing when I say, hey, girls, can you help clean up the house? And all of a sudden, every single wrapper that one girl picks up,
you drop that
the other one
there.
has to also pick up a wrapper. And then and then it turns into this fight. And, what I say to them all the time is like, guys, the fight shouldn't be about, are you doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing? The goal for you girls should be to try to do more than the other. Yeah. But that's a very, very challenging concept to teach. And we as grown-ups fall into the same thing, right? It's no different.
Oh yeah. Well, and we talk about it like in a marriage, right? Or any kind of, we'll just call it any kind of partnership outside of business, Sometimes you have one person in the partnership that has the energy, the capacity to really contribute at a high level. And the other person, for whatever the reason is, wants to contribute. They want to be involved. They have the drive, but just not the energy, And there's a different scenario when you have people who are trying to contribute, but there's different levels, versus people who are trying to avoid contribution, and that's what's causing the difference in levels, right? So and you guys probably could have guessed, the complications that can occur from these types of scenarios are infinite, right? Because it's not just about the specifics of the scenario, but it's about the personality of the people. It's about the relationship of the people. and that give and take type vibe that you have within the relationship. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to talk about.
Well, and so here we are talking about all the messiness of partnerships, and contributing at different levels can really lead to bad breakups and stuff. There is a positive experience that I know of. So I've got some very close friends that have owned a pest control company for a lot of years, and they have remained very close friends over all these years. They're almost like they're like two peas in a pod, right? I mean, they really get along, and they love each other. They love each other's families and all this stuff. And one of the partners recently said, this just isn't doing it for me anymore. And I think that I think that I have an idea to do something different. And so I want to exit. And they had an amicable exit. They remained friends. It wasn't messy. So in all of this, we do have to say that an exit from a partnership does not have to be messy.
No.
And I think in a lot of ways it depends on the maturity of the partners and their willingness to give and take, and all those positive virtues. But what I'm saying is there can be a positive dissolution of a partnership.
Yeah. And
it is possible.
Yeah, that's what's cool, is that you've got both elements where, you can be happy, and it could be good for the business to have a partnership and to break up the partnership, right? And for you personally too, it's not always the easiest thing to go through, but it could be a good thing. And then there's the same thing on the flip side. You could have a partnership that's actually toxic for each other and toxic for the business. And you could break up out of that partnership, and that's where the toxicity comes from, and
pulling out the sliver.
Yeah. And so you have to be, maybe this is kind of something we're just going to add to the list here, is that in any format, you have to be committed to the positive route, right? And it's not that you're always going to be able to pull that off, but there's a difference between being committed to the positive and just allowing a bad scenario to fuel resentment, right? So this has been...
Well, doesn't that come down to avoidance? That's really at the heart of it. Isn't that just avoidance?
Yeah, right? You realize that there's things that you should be doing, and so you kind of avoid those scenarios because you don't want to have the conversation, You don't
have the conversation.
Dude, so hats off. I'll mention one book that I would totally recommend. If you guys feel like you're having a struggle, and this is both for your business partnership, but also maybe for your management team or just your employees in general.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Whatever close group of people. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, I think, is an awesome book. And, we had a business partnership at Natura that eventually ended. And it's not that this book caused the end of it. The relationship was likely going to end anyway. We figured that out already.
The business partnership relationship.
Yeah, business partnership. Yep. And it provided a lot of clarity into management styles and contribution, but it also talked about the communication, the lack of trust, the lack of engagement, all those other things. So it's not often that I recommend a book where you're trying to open up conflict, but sometimes it's what you need. We talk about conflict needing solutions. It's like, oh, I've got a problem, I need a solution. And sometimes solutions need conflict, right? Otherwise, you're never going to get to that threshold where you actually take any action.
Right, dude, that's so Confucius of you to say that, right? Well, some partnerships are tricky. Partnerships are funny. And when you don't say anything about it, when you're bothered by something and you don't address it, I heard a story one time about a husband and wife, and every time they would walk out of a room, the wife would not turn the lights off, and so the husband would turn the lights off. And for some strange reason, which I don't really know, this bothered the friggin' crap out of the husband, right? And he held it in, and he resented her for not ever turning off the lights. And he's a guy, so he's thinking about, does she not care about the electricity bill and yada yada, right? His mind's going. And so after a long time of just letting this build up, they walk out of the room. She doesn't turn the lights off, and he's had it. And he says, "Why don't you ever turn off the freaking lights? Why don't you ever hit the light switch?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know, honey. Because you always do it." Right? Like if he had just had this conversation a year, 2 years, however long it was going on, said, "Hey, is there a reason why you don't like turning off the light switch when you leave the room?" If he had done that 2 years ago, and she said, "Well, I don't know, you always do it. That seems like the thing that you do," they wouldn't have built up. And so when you have a conflict in your partnership and you don't say anything about it, and you just let it build, then it can really create a problem. And I will say this about Natura's partnership. Because we're family, they can either go one of two ways. It can either go, "Oh man, I don't want to make things awkward, so I'm not going to say it," but it really bothers you, and you just let it build up, right? Or on the other side, you can say, "Well, because we are family, I can have the difficult conversations." Or even if it's not a difficult conversation, I can have that brief, minor, what might feel like conflict in order to just make sure that we're clearing the stones off the path, And so, like generally speaking, the three of us are really good about like clearing those little pebbles off the path so that we're not stubbing our toes. And it's really benefited us as a partnership, because we've been partners for 6 years now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it probably helps that Eric and I had a bajillion jobs together. Like we worked together since I joined the family almost 19 years, 18 plus years ago. So that helps, but that's the key, right? If you have little conflicts, just talk about them, address them. Don't just sit on it, because the longer that you sit on it, the sore your butt's going to get. So, and then you get butt hurt. Oh man, I see how I made that come full circle.
I like the connection.
Yeah.
That was really good, dude. Well, yeah, this has been an awesome topic, and I feel like it's going to be super helpful for a lot of the owners out there who could be struggling with these unresolved conflicts within their partnerships. So it's going to be cool, dude. Well, hey, for everybody else out there listening, we appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in. If you have a coworker or a manager or an owner who could benefit from listening to this episode, the best way to say thank you to us is to share this episode with them. If you haven't joined the Facebook groups yet, go find the groups and join. It's Bug Bucks Plus. Lots of information and great connections there. And if you have a topic you want discussed on the show, drop it in the group. As always, this episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. Visit bugbucksplus.com to sign up and start building today.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Thanks again for listening in, and until next time, keep building those pest control companies.
You're listening to the Bug Bucks Podcast, hosted by Eric Bassett and Jake Claus.